Hello friends, and welcome to Figure Study, where we appreciate the form in Transformers. Today, at long last, we are taking a look at movie masterpiece Barricade. I've actually had this guy for a fair bit, and I'm just now getting around to the video because reasons. And just want to preface this real quick by saying I do not have Human Alliance Barricade anymore, so unfortunately I cannot make that comparison, but there are definitely similarities with how Masterpiece Barricade transforms with that figure. It's definitely not the same figure, it's just there are some transformation and engineering cues that I think they took from the Human Alliance figure. That said, this is better. This is a whole lot better. This is really cool. And right off the bat, it is obviously a Mustang-y, sporty muscle car-y thing, police car thing. And it is pretty darn cool. Lots of nice painted detail on here with the car number, police, of course, the Decepticon police logo, which I think is a really nice touch. And we've got headlights and blinkers and lots of neat little details there. I like how there's like a piece of clear plastic that is part of it's like a separate piece that goes over the headlight, which is a nice detail there too. It's a nice looking police car. It's got some seams here and there, especially in the doors here. That's particularly noticeable, but it's understandable why they did that, so it's fine. It's noticeable, but it doesn't bother me that much. The only thing that really bothers me about this vehicle mode is, well, it's two things primarily. One, the rims of the tires are not painted in any way, which sucks. Realistically speaking, the way the transformation works, I do understand why they wouldn't necessarily want to paint it, because these don't end up, these are like for the shoulders, but these are part of the hands. These wheels here, they actually flip around and stuff clips into them, so if they painted the rims, the paint would totally start wearing off. I do get that. It's still disappointing, but overall, fine, whatever. Bigger disappointment for me for this mode is the windows. I've gone on a long-winded rant about this on Twitter before, so I'm not going to go on the full rant now, but basically, I kind of hate it when Transformers toys, and especially Masterpiece, do translucent windows, because there's no purpose to it. All it does is show you unsightly robot kibble that's crammed into the inside of the car, at best. With the Human Alliance figures, it made sense because you actually had, seats for little human figures to sit in and stuff like that. But, with this, there's no little figures are going to fit in there. All you do is you see through this windshield and it's, unsightly plastic support bits and little connectors and fingers and this nonsense going on here. It's just, these windows did not need to be see-through. At the very least, it would have been better if it was tinted, a dark tinted translucent plastic, as opposed to just straight up see-through, because that's unsightly. And it also doesn't quite work for Barricade, because Barricade's whole thing as a car is that he was this intimidating force to be reckoned with. And this I hate, I'm going on the rant again, I'm sorry. I just don't like the clear windows at all. There's no reason for it. They didn't need to be there, and even in robot mode, they serve no purpose, so that's disappointing. It's a nice alt mode overall. It's just I really don't like the clear windows, and the non-painted rims are a little disappointing, but eh. And on the underside, got some robot bits crammed in there, but they're crammed in a way that it doesn't necessarily look like robot, kind of, maybe, sort of, to a point. I don't know. That's how it go. And for a size comparison, here we've got Barricade with the Amiibo and Power of the Prime Swoop, and it's pretty decent size. Like I said, I don't have the Human Alliance anymore to do the comparison, but this car mode is a little bit smaller than the Human Alliance figure, from what I can remember, and from what I've seen in other videos. But, yeah, it's still a good size. And because this is really the only movie masterpiece-ish figure that I have that I felt like transforming back into alt mode right now, here he is with Unique Toys Perukill. And Perukill is bigger. They don't really properly scale together. I think Perukill's just a little bit too big overall. I think if we put them with each other like that, you can kind of see they're, yeah. I mean, it looks close. Looks pretty close, but Perukill is a little bit too big. Or Barricade is a little bit too small, however you want to look at it. It doesn't really matter. Like I've said in the past, I'm not really a huge proponent of scale, so it doesn't really matter to me. I'm mostly just showing him with other vehicles and such for you all, because as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to these figures, most of the time, I just want to know a general idea of size as opposed to how much they scale with anything, because I just don't care. Anyway, that's it for the size comparisons. I think there wasn't, it's not a whole lot to say for Barricade's alt mode. It's a nice kind of muscle car, police car. Nice details, like I said. Just have those two, one minor annoyance and one major annoyance, but that's it. It's still solidly done. Anyway, that is going to do it for the vehicle mode. So, time for the good stuff. That was a lot more difficult to do in front of a camera than I was expecting it to be. I'm sorry if anything ended up not being in frame properly. But here we have Movie Masterpiece Barricade in robot mode, and this is a really great Barricade. I didn't necessarily have any problems with Human Alliance Barricade, but this just looks fantastic. Very monstrous looking. And this kind of goes back to that aesthetic from the that was like common with the movie figures that I always really, really liked, and that's the idea that it's like a vehicle just kind of exploded and then the explosion turned into a robot, because there's very little here that looks like police car anymore, and I'm very into that. And I like how there's actually not a whole lot of police car kibble on him. Like, there's some on the back for sure, where he's got like the tops of the windows there and like the hood and stuff kind of folds up a little bit, but overall a lot of it just becomes like it kind of origamis itself into details and limbs and stuff like that, and that's really cool and goes further to kind of sell that whole explosion becomes a robot thing. And I really, really like the way this guy looks. I love the monstrous proportions and the fact that he's got these like longer than natural arms with giant silver claws. It's a really cool look. They did a surprisingly good job with like just filling in little gaps here and there too, like how there are these pieces here that fill in these gaps in the arms to make them look more like, full pieces, and the way certain things kind of accordion up in order to solidify other things. It's very well done. I am super into what they did with Barricade here. He just looks so good, and I really like the way they did these claws too. They're like jaggedy fish hooks that are really, really cool. The one thing that kind of sucks with this guy is the fact that he doesn't have any wrist swivels, just because of the way he transforms, which is a little disappointing, but at the same time, he's fine. They actually worked a surprising amount of clever engineering in to give him like a nice bicep rotation and curl there, which, I mean, like, that's a better elbow than some other figures have, like, just in terms of bend. And this entire arm, this entire chunk of the arm is just the side of the police car and the rear window. Like, just the fact that it can compact into this sort of forearm shape and still have posability is really impressive engineering. I love the way that came together. Not entirely sure about these weird little bits that you're supposed to flip up for the hips. I mean, it adds to his jaggedy look, but it's just kind of eh. But yeah, this is just a really, really cool robot mode. And he's got the telltale Barricade chest grill that you can kind of adjust as you see fit in different ways. He just looks so good. I love the silhouette on this guy. And he even has these like little bug wing looking things coming off the back that go really well with sideways. Really kind of drives that kind of more monstrous look that the Decepticons had home. And looking at the head, this was the one thing I was not sure about when I saw the Masterpiece figure, because the product photography made the head look absolutely terrible. It is not terrible. It's actually a very, very cool looking face sculpt for a Barricade. I don't remember enough about the movie to know just how accurate it is, nor do I care enough to look it up, but it's a good looking face. It's definitely got that monstrous, semi-insectile, very just viciousness to it. It's like lots of jagged metal and teeth, which are themselves jagged metal. And he does have some nicely painted squinty eyes in there, which do look good. The only thing that kind of disappoints me with this is there's some nice detail in there, but because the head is so dark and because the paint for the eyes is so dark, it's kind of hard to make out that detail, even with these lights on. And I don't really know how much they could have done to change that, except maybe use a brighter red for the eyes, but it's still a little bit of a shame. But I do like the different colors in here. You got a little bit of that blue, a lot of that really nice silver, and the red, and like this little bit of copperiness around the mouth, which does open, and it's okay. I mean, I think it's kind of silly, but I guess I can see why they would want to do it. The thing that bugs me about the mouth is it opens too wide. Like, it's super easy to just do that, and that's kind of annoying. It's difficult to get back out if you ever accidentally do that while transforming him. I don't mind the opening mouth. I just kind of wish that they had like a stop in there somewhere where it would stop opening after a certain point, like sooner than it normally does. But yeah, overall, very cool. And I do actually kind of like this blue that they've got going in there. I don't know. I'd never owned the official Movie Masterpiece Bumblebee, but just based on what I've seen, I feel like there's more detail going on with Barricade. Because like, there's all these little bits with like the silver and that metallic blue that have been painted very, very nicely. And here you even have a little bit of that copper. And you do kind of get a little bit of it on the outside too. Yeah, it looks good. It does kind of stink that the thigh swivel area here is this kind of grayish plastic as opposed to, you know, black. Like, I don't really know why they went with that color. I guess it just has to do with like the molding or something like that, but it is a little bit annoying that it couldn't have been a little more cohesive. It's close enough that it doesn't stand out too badly, but it's a little bit like, I don't know. But still, very, very cool figure. Very, just very, very much like how angry and vicious he looks. So there we have that. And now, here we have Movie Masterpiece Barricade with Power of the Primes Deluxe and the amiibo. And you can see, like, he's not what I would necessarily call huge, but he compacts very nicely. And what I really think is interesting with Barricade specifically is the way he decompresses as a car. Like, most figures, they tend to kind of go up. And, you know, they get height from all the compact engineering and stuff like that. Barricade, he goes out. He just gets this very wide, intimidating looking frame. And I didn't want to do this without doing a Bumblebee comparison because I have the opportunity to. So here we've got Barricade with technically not Movie Masterpiece Bumblebee. This is actually Legendary Toys Wasp, the knockoff of Movie Masterpiece Bumblebee. And you can tell because it's got a much better paint job. But, I mean, it's, same overall size and stuff. And so Bumblebee is actually just a tiny bit taller than Barricade, but I think a lot of that also has to do with the fact that Barricade's legs have this, less humanoid curve to them. So if he were standing up straight, I think they'd be about the same height. And another comparison that I really wanted to make is with the 10th anniversary movie, or Movie the Best, whatever you want to call it, I don't really know or care, Soundwave, which is the really amazing repaint of Human Alliance Soundwave. And these two look really good together as well. I do think, in the grand scheme of things, Soundwave's vehicle mode is probably a little too big, and his robot mode possibly a little too small, but they still look really good together. I especially like how, these two together, they're just sort of the, basically the arm squad. You want big arms? They've got big arms. And just in case you're wondering, I did not show him in vehicle mode with him because just all the silver paint on this makes me very hesitant to transform him any more times than I absolutely need to, because I don't want to wreck the paint job. And last, but by absolutely no means least, here we have Movie Masterpiece Barricade with Peru Kill. And there's a bit of a height discrepancy between the two of them, just a tad. And yeah, this if you're a scale junkie, I'm pretty sure this doesn't work. I mean, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head because I don't know how big Lockdown is supposed to be in comparison to Barricade, for real, but I think that this scale's a bit off. I don't care because they look really great standing on a shelf together, but I definitely think Lockdown might be a tad too big in terms of scale. So, Movie Masterpiece Barricade. He is a very, very cool guy. I'm very glad I managed to get my hands on him. I mean, there wasn't really any doubt that I was going to because, okay, that's not true. There was some doubt because when I first saw the pictures, I was not really feeling it. It's just, again, the promotional photography for this guy was not doing a good job of presenting him. The colors looked weird. There seemed to be way too much brightness in places, and some of the silver looked white. But the final product is just fantastic. I absolutely love this figure. There was a point where I was actually thinking maybe I was going to wait and see if Legendary Toys was going to do a rendition of this as well with more paint, but even if they do, I'm perfectly content with this. Aside from the wheels and the clear windows, there's really nothing on here that I'm looking at and thinking, man, that desperately needs more paint. I think they actually did a really good job with the color distribution here. I didn't know how I would feel about the blue mixed in with the black and the silver at first, but I think it's actually a pretty cool color scheme because the blue is dark enough that it's still noticeable, but it's not glaringly standing out. And I love this aesthetic, how you've got these jagged bits everywhere. Like I said, it looks like a car exploded and the explosion became a robot. And it really pulls off that look really, really well. I've said this before, but I am hoping that we get even more Movie Masterpiece figures in the future. Speaking of which, before we wrap up, what are your thoughts on Movie Masterpiece Barricade? Are there any paint decorations or other details that you have a problem with or would like to change? Does the scaling bother you or appeal to you? Either or? Is this something that you would want to get your hands on right away, or something that you would hold out for a knockoff version with a slightly different paint scheme and probably a smaller price tag? And I'm also curious, I've asked this before, but never hurts to ask again. What are some other Movie Masterpiece figures that you would really like to see? Because I've got a freaking laundry list of figures that I would love to see get the Movie Masterpiece treatment. Top of the list would be Soundwave. I would love a Movie Masterpiece Soundwave. The 10th anniversary repaint of Human Alliance Soundwave is fantastic, and is probably the closest thing we're going to get to a Movie Masterpiece Soundwave, but if they decided to actually do a straight-up Movie Masterpiece version, I would absolutely love that. Movie Masterpiece Starscream would also be fantastic. And yes, I know that there's the repaint of Hunt for the Decepticons Leader Class Starscream, and they called it Movie Masterpiece Starscream, but I don't think that really counts. I'm talking an actual masterpiece, like intended to be a masterpiece designed figure, not a repaint of an admittedly really awesome figure, but still. I do think a movie masterpiece Starscream would be fantastic. But whatever your thoughts, please feel free to let me know down in the comments. I always enjoy hearing from you all. And while you're at it, you can also feel free to like or subscribe. Any of those three would make me a happy Rob. And remember, art is more than meets the eye.